Hi, I'm Abby McKinney, and I'm here with George Kramer, the author of the Arcadia series, the Blind to Blood series, and many other amazing works. Hi, George. How are you today?
Doing really well.
All right. So, first, we'd like to know, where are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and then there were 7 out of 9 children with 2 parents in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, so we moved to Long Island.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you like it in Long Island?
Yes, I had a full life.
Well, that's good. How did you end up in Indiana?
It's a funny story. My oldest brother went to a Bible college in New Mexico and met a woman from Greenfield, Indiana. So I visited from 85 to 89 and decided to move here.
All right, that's awesome. So we obviously know that you're an author, but do you have any other job that you do besides writing?
Yes, I work in St. Vincent's in Indianapolis on 86th Street in the surgery department. It's a huge surgery department. It's 30 ORs.
All right, so like what is your job title?
Patient care technician, which basically I bring patients down from all the floors. We have 7 floors. Help room staff position patients after sleep. Basically, when I go into a room and the patients ask, "Are you the doctor?" No. "Are you the anesthesiologist?" No. "What are you?" And I look at them and I say, my job is to relieve your angst based on my dry sense of humor. If they laugh, I can joke with them to relieve their angst. If they're serious, then I turn serious. But I like to have them in a lighter mood because everybody's nervous before they go to surgery.
Yeah, so you work in a job with a lot of people, basically.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. So how do you balance your day job and your writing?
Well, initially it was a little more difficult because I had worked 5 days, 8 hours a day, and then commuting. But I decided I wanted to spend a little more time on my writing, so I asked for 3/12s. So I'm off Tuesdays and Fridays, and that gives me plenty of time to write after my honey-do list.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of free time in between.
Correct.
Working.
And on occasion, like my daughter's going to Bloomington today, my wife's going out of town, so I'll be alone till tomorrow afternoon, so it'll be easier to write.
Yeah, because you won't have any distractions. Not that I assume family would be like a
No, they
bothers.
dig me. They want me around them.
So since you're an author, what do you enjoy reading? Like, what kind of books do you enjoy to read?
Well, that's interesting because I'm writing my 8th book of Arcadius. But prior to that, I never read fantasy. And I was on Netflix a few years ago, in 2014, and I saw The Dresden Files. It was a 1 season on Netflix. Watched it. It was about a sorcerer in Chicago. The only thing I didn't like a hockey stick being his staff, but okay. And I found it was based on books by Jim Butcher. So I started reading it, and it was very interesting because it was from first-person view, not third-person. And I enjoyed that. So I started reading Jim Butcher, and then a doctor friend of mine told me about another author called Kevin Hearns. I read him. He's first-person, too.
So you do enjoy reading works in the fantasy genre?
Now I do, yeah.
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 Well, that's good, because then you can kind of broaden your knowledge. So that's awesome. When did you start writing?
5th grade. This is way before computers. Mr. Irwin in 5th grade in New York was reading Treasure Island, and he put that pirate accent. And I know a lot of people that I talked to from my school enjoyed that. I was bored, so I had a pencil and paper, started writing. And by the time I was 16, I had plays, short stories, and, well, for 14-year-olds, 2 novels.
That's awesome. Do you ever think about publishing some of those that maybe haven't been published?
No, they were thrown away by an older brother.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm sure people would love to read them.
Yeah, from 16 to 18, I didn't do any writing, and then I liked this girl, so I started writing poetry, and then I picked it up again.
That's good that you got back into it, because now you've got almost 8 novels and plenty of other books that everyone can read. What other authors inspire you?
Besides Jim Butcher and Kevin Hearns, I like Stephen King, Dean Koontz.
Yeah, so like some of the, I know Stephen King is horror. I've never...
Dean Koontz is similar.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So very similar books
Yeah.
in general. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process, like how you come up with characters and storylines and stuff?
Oh, well, with Arcadius, it was actually all imagination, but there is a side note to that. I just remembered. I read Jim Butcher's books, and I said, you know what, I want to write fantasy. I just don't know what. And then this is how my mind works. I kept it in the back of my mind. I went to my triplet sister's house, because I'm a natural-born triplet. I went to her house, and she had 6 cans of paint, 3 here, 3 here. I said, what are you doing? She goes, well, these are 3 primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. These are the offshoots. They're secondaries colors. Bang, idea. That's how I got the color concept of color powers in Arcadius. For the writing process for the Blind to Blood, it was based on what I used to do, and I would ask people if they wanted to be in my Blind to Blood book, and I asked friends at work and online, and I had like over 80 responses, and I can't kill 80, well, I could kill 80 people, but I wouldn't. So I said, all right, I'll pick a few, but there's 2 stipulations. 1, I have to use your real name, and 2, I will have to kill you horrifically. And there was a doctor friend of mine, anesthesiologist. He said, well, George, I want you to kill me with dignity. I said, serial killer, dignity. You know, I don't know.
They don't really go together.
And he goes, you'll find a way. And he really enjoyed the way I killed him off. He thought it was dignified.
That's
Okay.
good, at least. I mean, I think those are some interesting stipulations, and the fact that people like actually agreed and were like, yes, like kill me off, like,
Oh, yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, they want me to write the 3rd book because other people want to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can keep writing. You've got 80 people almost, so.
And what's interesting is I didn't see the side effect of this is someone said that is marketing genius. I was like, why? They said, well, everybody on your book, because on the 2nd book cover I have everybody that I killed off, will market that book because their face is
They're
on
in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you used to be a tissue procurement specialist, and my next question was, do you often find yourself drawing from your own experiences when you're writing?
From the medical books, yes. But I wrote the first Blind to Blood, and I gave it to beta readers, and non-medical people was like, George, I don't understand this. What's a patella? What's a tibia? I was like, all right, so what I did was, I don't like using the word dumb it down, I simplified it.
Yeah.
So if I said, well, I'm going to take your patella, I'll put in parentheses, kneecap.
Yeah.
But here's the thing with the Blind to Blood, the writing process. Initially, I wrote it in 2009, and it was 501 pages. Sent it to the editor. The editor said, George, I have a criminal justice degree. 90 to 95% police procedures wrong. You're going to have to rewrite that book. I said, no way. I'm not rewriting that book. From 2009 to 2015, nothing. I started telling friends about it at work in the surgery department. You need to rewrite it, you need to rewrite it. I don't know how to write it without police procedure. And someone said, just write it as a journal. Bang. So now I wrote it as a journal, so it's after the fact. And he has a photographic memory, so he can recall everything with vivid clarity. And that's why I say, well, I'm going to take your patella, parentheses, folks, because he's talking to people.
Yeah.
Folks, that's the kneecap.
That's actually a really interesting concept, because then I feel like that brings the people who are reading the book closer to the narrator, and you can kind of see it out of his eyes.
It's a narration, correct.
Yeah, so that's really awesome. So my next question kind of stems off of the first one too. Which of your characters would you compare yourself to the most, and why?
Well, I would like to say Arcadius, only because people that read the books that know me, so George, I see Arcadius in you. I was told I don't have a filter when I talk to people, and it's only because of my upbringing in New York. But a lot of stuff Arcadius says, I would like to say, but I don't. So I think he actually extends that a step further than what I would actually say.
Yeah, so he's not quite, but almost everything you'd like to be?
Well, yeah, because he's powerful, extremely powerful, so he knows he can get away with it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, when you got that much power, what can't you do?
And I don't identify with Ben Burchell in the Blind to Blood series, but it is, in his mind, cool that he can just go to someone and say, I know how to take your heart. I know how to take your bones. I mean, I know how, but I don't think like that. In other words, I put myself like, what would I not do, and put that in there. So it is kind of extension of myself, but it's not.
Yeah. He's almost at a sense of gone mad with power.
Yeah.
Versus where Arcadius is more like, I've got this power, but I'm going to use it for good.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say is the most popular or most beloved book that you've written?
Number one of the Arcadius. People, I've gotten emails from parents. There was this 10, 11-year-old boy at 2:30 in the morning, a school night. He was laughing. His mom woke up, saw that he was reading my book. There's a surgeon, couple of surgeons at work that read them and love the Arcadius books, and it all stems from the first one.
Yeah.
And I leave each one with a cliffhanger, so you have to read the next book.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm not done with you yet.
Yeah.
I personally myself really, I haven't finished it yet, but I really do enjoy the first book. So I would say that I feel like that's a pretty good, you know. Which of your books did you enjoy writing the most, and why?
Arcadius, because it is so imaginative. To me, the difference between writing science fiction and science fantasy, in science fiction, you got to write about the planet, how the ship operates, what kind of atmosphere. In fantasy, you could write about purple dragons that spit trees, and it's okay as long as it's relative to the storyline.
Exactly.
There's no limitation, and that's what I really like.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no limits to what you can do because it's your world.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah. Could you give like a brief summary of the first book so that maybe people who haven't read it and are new fans, or have maybe read the Blind to Blood series and are thinking about reading Arcadius but aren't sure, could you give us a brief summary of that book so maybe we can draw some people in?
Sure. In the real world, there's three primary colors: red, blue, and yellow. In the sorcery world, there was only three primary colors: red, blue, and yellow, and you had to marry your own color. So a red-powered sorcerer had to marry red, blue had to marry blue, yellow had to marry a yellow. When Lord Quill took over, he didn't want anybody to usurp his authority, so he mandated you have to marry outside of your color. So when a yellow-powered sorcerer marries a blue-powered sorcerer, a green-powered baby is born. When a red marries a blue or purple, when a yellow marries a red, an orange-powered baby is born. And he kept some to keep the bloodline pure, but basically you had to marry outside your color. And those were considered secondaries. They weren't as powerful, and they felt like they weren't being treated fairly, so a war erupted in Book 2. But the prophecy part is several centuries ago, it's prophesied that Arcadius will die on his 30th birthday. And that's where it kind of takes place. He lives in McCordsville. I have the book in McCordsville. He works in an antique store, and he's harboring a massive secret. He is the most powerful sorcerer in all known realms, and he just wants to be left alone. But lately, more and more sorcerers are coming to his abode, wanting to fight, and that's when he finds out about the prophecy and all that.
Yeah, so he's been unaware of the prophecy this entire time. All right, well, that's really awesome. Hopefully someone will hear that and be like, oh, that sounds really cool, and they'll pick up the first book, and then in turn pick up the second book, and then before they know it, they've read through the entire series, and they're waiting for the 8th book.
Well, a friend of mine suggested combining the two. All of my books are 5x8, that's standard size. He suggested combining books 1 and 2, which would give much more of the character basis, make it 6x9. So I have a special edition, so if people really want to get to know the character, they can buy that.
Well, see, there you go. That's awesome. And lastly, before we're done, what advice would you give to someone who's an aspiring author?
It's very interesting you say that, because I have 2 friends that are attempting to write. So I go to them every few days. Did you write anything? No. Did you write anything? No. And they go, well, can I have some advice? I was like, just write it. Just sit down and write. It's simpler than you're making it out to be. You know, devote some time. And people that buy my books, and I said, have you read my book? Well, no, I got a few others before. I was like, out of all those authors, how many do you know? Well, just you. Bring me up to the top. So, and then you can read, and if that inspires you to write, I've actually had people tell me I inspire them to write. And that's the one sage advice, is just write. It seems simple, it is, but with people's busy lives, you're just going to have to make time if that's your passion, and it's mine.
I think that that's some really good advice, because I do agree that people make it a lot more complicated than it really is, because all you need to do is like sit down and use your imagination, because
Yep.
it's words, you can do whatever you want with them.
And what's interesting is I've never ever had writer's block. I've had times where I'm just not in the mood and I won't, but if I sit down, I will write. I just have an overactive imagination.
I do too. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for coming in.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.